There is a silence that comes after the storm. And then there is the silence that is the storm. You know this silence. It's the one you initiated. After the 1,000th explanation went unheard, after the 1,000th apology for a crime you didn't commit, after the 1,000th time you felt your own energy drain out of you, like a tide going out and never coming back in. You finally did it. You stopped responding. You stopped reaching out. You stopped. And the world did not end, but something inside you feels like it might. Because now, in the quiet, another voice begins to speak. And it is not a voice of relief. It is the cold, heavy voice of guilt. It settles in your chest, a physical weight. It whispers that you are cruel, that you are the one who abandoned them, that you are punishing them, and that a good person, a kind person, your kind of person, would never do this. This guilt, it doesn't feel like a simple emotion, does it? It feels like a fundamental truth. It feels like a law of physics. It has a gravity that pulls your hand toward the phone, that composes a message in your head 100 times a day. A message that says, "I'm sorry. Are you okay? Let's just fix this." You have become the villain in your own story of survival. This is the most dangerous moment. This is the moment the entire dynamic was built to create. It's not an accidental byproduct of the ending. It is the system's final, most powerful self-preservation mechanism. The bond was never just held together by hope or affection. It was held together by an invisible architecture of guilt. And when you went silent, you didn't just cut a cord of communication. You declared war on the very structure that kept you in place. What you are feeling is not just regret. It is the activation of a deep psychological program. And understanding this program is the only thing that will keep you from walking back into the room you just spent all your strength escaping. The surface story is simple. You were hurt and you withdrew. Anyone would understand that. But the deeper truth is far more uncomfortable. The silence wasn't just a reaction to them. It was a rebellion against a part of yourself. The part that learned, long ago, that your worth was tied to your ability to manage, soothe, and absorb the emotional states of others. You wore the mask of the good person, the understanding one, the patient one. You wore it for so long it fused with your skin. You believed it was your face. This identity, this role, became your persona. In the world of Jungian psychology, a persona is the social mask we present to the world. For many empaths, this persona isn't just about being polite. It's a highly developed, functional tool for navigating a world that often feels too loud, too sharp, too demanding. It's a shield made of kindness. But what happens when the shield becomes a cage? For years, your kindness wasn't just a virtue, it was a function. It was the emotional currency you paid to keep the peace, to de-escalate conflict, to feel needed, and to avoid being seen as difficult or selfish. You became a human shock absorber, and in the dynamic you just left, your role was clear. You were the regulator. You were the one responsible for the emotional weather in the room. If they were stormy, it was your job to be the calm. If they were empty, it was your job to be the source. And now, there is silence. You have withdrawn your function. From their perspective, a service has been discontinued. But from yours, a deep, cellular-level panic sets in. Because the persona of the good person cannot survive in this silence. The good person doesn't withdraw. The good person fixes. The good person endures. The guilt you feel is the sound of that persona cracking. It's the terror of not knowing who you are without that role. If you are not the fixer, the healer, the patient one, then what are you? The guilt provides a horribly simple answer. You are the problem. You are the cruel one. This is where we must go deeper, into the engine room of the psyche. This is not just a feeling, it is a complex. Carl Jung described a complex as an emotionally charged cluster of ideas, feelings, and memories in the unconscious. It functions like a splinter in the psyche, gathering energy and behaving with a kind of autonomy. You don't control the complex controls you. It gets triggered, and suddenly you are no longer a 40-year-old adult. You are a 7-year-old child, terrified of being blamed. The guilt you are experiencing now is not just a passing feeling. It is a full-blown guilt complex that has been activated. This complex has been fed and strengthened for years within this relational dynamic. It's a carefully constructed psychological chain. Think of how it was built, piece by piece. Every time you were subtly blamed for their bad mood, Every time your needs were framed as an attack on them. Every time you tried to express a boundary and were met with a wounded look or a cold shoulder, a small link was forged. Every time you apologized just to end the fight, the chain got stronger. You were taught, implicitly, that their emotional stability was your responsibility. Your own peace was conditional upon their approval. This guilt complex is the invisible warden of that prison. Its one job is to keep you in your role. So when you go silent, when you refuse to play your part, the complex doesn't just whisper, it screams. It floods your system with a feeling of wrongness so profound, it feels like you violated a sacred law. And in a way, you have. You have violated the primary law of the toxic dynamic. You are not allowed to prioritize yourself. The silence is the ultimate violation. It is a declaration that you are no longer available to regulate their inner world. You are no longer willing to be the container for their unprocessed chaos, their anxiety, their emptiness. And the guilt complex, the loyal servant of the old system, rises up to tell you that this is the most selfish, monstrous thing you could possibly do. It will use your own empathy against you. It will show you images of them, alone and suffering. It will make you feel their imagined pain as if it were your own. It will remind you of their good moments, their vulnerability, their potential. It will do anything to trick you into believing that their pain is more important than your own survival. This is the critical distinction. The guilt complex is not your conscience. Your conscience is the quiet, steady voice of your own soul, yourself, which guides you toward wholeness and integrity. The guilt complex is a loud, frantic, conditioned program. It's an artifact of the trauma bond, a ghost in the machine. The way to tell the difference is to feel it in your body. True, healthy guilt or remorse feels clean. It leads to repair and a desire to do better. It says, I have acted against my own values. The feeling generated by a guilt complex feels sticky, heavy, and circular. It doesn't lead to resolution. It leads back to appeasement. It feels like a debt you can never repay. It says, you are bad. Your existence is a problem for someone else. That feeling of being fundamentally wrong for choosing your own peace, that is the signature of the complex. So, when the wave of guilt hits, and you feel that overwhelming urge to break the silence, to explain yourself one more time, to check on them, pause. Place your hand on your chest, where the weight feels heaviest, and recognize it for what it is. This is not your soul speaking. This is the chain rattling. This is the complex doing its job, trying to pull you back into the familiar, painful dance. The dynamic you were in required you to suppress a huge part of yourself. This is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not necessarily evil. It is simply everything we are unconscious of in ourselves, everything we have disowned or repressed. To be the good person, you had to push your own anger, your own needs, your own righteous no into the shadow. Your capacity for healthy aggression, the part of you that should have risen up to say, this is not okay, was disowned. Your need for reciprocity, for your own feelings to be held with care, was disowned. Your exhaustion was disowned. You packed it all away into the darkness of the unconscious, because in the world of this relationship, those parts of you were unacceptable. They were selfish. For years, this shadow self has been sending you signals, the unexplained fatigue that sleep couldn't fix, the sudden flashes of rage that you would quickly suppress and feel ashamed of, the dreams of being trapped or voiceless. Your psyche was trying to tell you that the balance was dangerously off. You were living only half a life, the half that was acceptable to the other person. The final silence is the moment the shadow finally breaks through the floorboards. It is not a calculated, cruel act. It is a desperate, primal act of survival. It is the eruption of all the life force you have been suppressing. It is the accumulated power of every no you swallowed, every boundary that was crossed, every time you put yourself last. This silence is your shadow coming into the light, not to destroy, but to save you. And of course, it feels terrifying. Of course, it feels wrong. You are acting from a part of yourself you have been taught to fear and reject. You are finally embodying the very things you were programmed to see as negative, being unreachable, unresponsive, unavailable. The other person, and the guilt complex inside you, will label this as coldness. They will call it cruel. But it is not coldness. It is the quiet hum of a nervous system that has been in a state of high alert for years, finally powering down into a state of conservation. It is the stillness of a body that has stopped bracing for the next impact. It is the quiet of a soul that has stopped screaming into a void and has finally turned its attention inward. This quietness is not an absence of love or care. It is the presence of a boundary. And a boundary is not a wall to punish others. It is a sacred circle you draw around yourself to protect your own life force. The greatest trick of a manipulative dynamic is to convince you that your boundary is an act of aggression against them. But your silence is not an attack. It is the end of your participation in your own destruction. Let's imagine the dynamic as a locked room. For years, you've been in this room with another person. The air is stale, the light is dim. You are not chained to the wall, but the door is locked, and they hold the only key. Your job is to keep the room tidy, to make sure they are comfortable, to light the candles when it gets dark. You spend all your energy managing the atmosphere of this small, suffocating space. One day, you discover something incredible. There was a key in your own pocket the whole time. It was heavy and unfamiliar, and you'd forgotten it was even there. It is the key of radical self-acceptance, the key that says, my well-being is my own responsibility. The final silence is the moment you put that key in the lock. You don't slam the door. You don't yell back into the room. You simply turn the key, open the door, and walk out into the open air. And the first thing that hits you is not the fresh air. It's the blinding sunlight of guilt. The guilt complex screams, how dare you leave them in that room alone? Who will light their candles now? Who will keep them company? It tries to convince you that the fresh air is poison and the suffocating room was safety. It tries to drag you back to what is familiar. The work now is not to argue with the voice. It's not to run from it. It is to stand still, feel the sun on your face, breathe the new air, and let the voice scream itself hoarse until it has no more power. You survive the guilt by outliving it. You stand in the truth of your own freedom until your body learns that it is safe. This process is a core part of what Carl Jung called individuation, the journey of becoming an integrated, whole individual. It is the process of separating from collective expectations, from family conditioning, and from enmeshed relationships to discover and live from your authentic self. Individuation is not a comfortable process. It often begins with a crisis, a breakdown, a moment where the old way of living becomes utterly impossible. Your final silence was that moment. It was the collapse of the old world. It was a necessary death of the persona that was keeping you small and sick. By choosing silence, you have chosen individuation over stagnation. You have chosen the terrifying, uncertain path of becoming yourself over the predictable misery of remaining an extension of someone else. The guilt is the threshold guardian. It stands at the doorway between your old life and your new one, and it tests your resolve. It asks you, are you truly ready to be responsible for your own life? Are you willing to be misunderstood? Are you willing to disappoint others in order to be true to yourself? Every moment you endure the discomfort of the guilt without breaking your silence, you are answering yes. You are casting a vote for your own soul. If this journey of understanding your own inner world speaks to you, if it names something you have felt but never had the words for, take a moment to acknowledge that. This is not just an intellectual exercise. This is the work of reclaiming your life. Think of the energy you have spent. The sheer volume of life force that has gone into analyzing their words, anticipating their moods, managing their reactions, and rehearsing conversations in your head. It is enough energy to power a city. It is a river of your own vitality that has been diverted to water a barren land. The silence is not about them anymore. It is about redirecting that river back to your own soil. At first, it will feel strange. You will have so much mental and emotional space, you won't know what to do with it. This is the void that the guilt rushes in to fill. Your mind, so used to the problem of them, will feel agitated without its central focus. This is your opportunity. This is the sacred emptiness where you can finally begin to plant your own garden. What do you feel when you are not filtering it through the lens of their potential reaction? What do you need when you are not silencing your needs to make space for theirs? What brings you a flicker of joy, however small? Start there. A walk in nature, a song that you love, a cup of tea in a quiet room. These are not trivial things. They are acts of profound reconnection. You are teaching your nervous system, cell by cell, that you exist. that your senses, your preferences, your peace, they matter. You are slowly, patiently, re-inhabiting your own life. There will be moments of intense temptation. You might see something that reminds you of them. A mutual friend might mention them. They might even try to break the silence themselves, sending a message designed to trigger that guilt complex perfectly. I don't know what I did, but I hope you're okay. I miss my best friend. Or even, you've really hurt me. These are tests. They are lures cast by the old dynamic, trying to hook you back in. When this happens, do not engage with the lure. Engage with yourself. Notice the jolt in your body. Notice the immediate, conditioned impulse to respond, to fix, to soothe. And then, choose differently. Take a deep breath. Put your phone down. Go for a walk. You do not owe them a response. You owe yourself your peace. Your silence is not a punishment for them. It is a prescription for you. It is the medicine you desperately need. The ultimate shift happens when you stop seeing your silence as a temporary strategy and start seeing it as a permanent state of being. It's not a no-contact rule to get a reaction. It is a fundamental reorientation of your life. You are moving from a state of being externally referenced to internally referenced. Your locus of control is coming home. The question is no longer, what will they think, or how will they feel? The question becomes, what is true for me right now? And what do I need to feel safe and whole? This is the end of the empath's curse, which was never the empathy itself, but the lack of boundaries to protect it. Your empathy is a superpower, but a superpower without discipline can be incredibly destructive. The silence, the boundary, is the discipline. It allows your empathy to be a gift you can choose to give, not a resource that is constantly being taken. You will change. The silence will change you. The person who emerges on the other side of this is not the same one who entered it. You will be quieter, perhaps, more discerning, less willing to perform for approval. Some people from your old life might not recognize you. They might call you cold or hard. Let them. They are describing the boundary, not the person inside it. They are touching the fence and complaining that it is not a welcome mat. What they fail to see is the thriving, peaceful garden that the fence is protecting. Your heart is not harder, it is safer. Your kindness is not gone, it is no longer for sale. The final silence of the empath is not an ending. It is a profound and sacred beginning. It is the moment you stop waiting for permission to exist. It is the moment you reclaim the key to your own life, not with a bang, but with a quiet, resolute stillness. It is the moment you finally hear your own soul, in the silence left behind when all the other noise has faded away, and you realize it was there all along, waiting patiently for you to come home. My silence is not a weapon, it is my sanctuary. But what happens inside this sanctuary of silence? On a cellular level, what is this stillness doing? For years, your body has been a silent witness, a library of every unshed tear and every swallowed protest. The trauma of this dynamic wasn't just in your mind, it was encoded in your tissues, in the perpetual tightness in your shoulders, braced for the next criticism, in the shallow breathing that prepared you for conflict, in the clenched jaw that held back 1,000 truths. Your body kept the score, and the score was a state of chronic, unending emergency. This silence is the first time your nervous system has been given permission to stand down. It's the first real exhale after years of holding your breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when a body that has been frozen in a state of high alert begins to thaw, the process is not always peaceful. This is the body memory layer of your healing. You may feel a profound fatigue, a weariness so deep it feels like it's in your bones. This is not laziness. This is the accumulated exhaustion of years of hypervigilance finally being allowed to surface. You may experience unexplained aches and pains, tremors, or waves of heat and cold. This is not you falling apart. It is your body releasing the stored energy of trauma. It is the static clearing from the line. The guilt complex will try to interpret these sensations as proof that you are unwell, that leaving them has made you sick. It will whisper, "See, you can't cope without them." But the truth is the opposite. You are not getting sick, you are getting well. This is the feeling of the poison leaving your system. Your vagus nerve, the great regulator of your internal state, is learning a new song. For so long, it has been stuck in a sympathetic state, the fight, flight, or freeze response. Now, in the quiet, it is tentatively, cautiously, exploring the parasympathetic state, the mode of rest, digest, and repair. Every time a wave of guilt hits and you choose not to act on it, you are strengthening this new neural pathway. You are teaching your body, on its most primal level, that the emergency is over. You are safe now. And in this new, safe, internal space, the real work of integration can begin. The silence is not an empty void. It is a workshop. It is here that you finally get to meet the parts of yourself that you were forced to exile. This is where you truly encounter your shadow, not as the monster you were taught it was, but as the keeper of your disowned power. Your shadow holds your righteous anger, which is the engine of setting boundaries. It holds your deep need for solitude, which is the source of your wisdom. It holds your unfiltered truth, which is the key to your integrity. Integrating this shadow doesn't mean you become cruel, selfish, or aggressive in the way the narcissist was. That is a projection, a fear instilled in you to keep you compliant. Integrating your shadow means you finally allow yourself the full spectrum of human emotion. It means you can feel anger without labeling yourself a bad person. It means you can say no without needing to write a legal brief defending your decision. Practically, this looks like small, revolutionary acts. It is choosing not to answer a phone call because you don't feel like talking. It is stating a preference. I'd rather watch this movie than that one, without apology. It is allowing yourself to rest when you are tired, instead of pushing through to meet an imaginary standard of productivity. These small acts are you reclaiming territory. You are taking back your life, one authentic choice at a time. This process builds a new kind of self-worth, one that is not dependent on your usefulness to others, but is inherent. It is the quiet, solid feeling of self-respect. How do you know this profound inner shift is truly happening? There are concrete signs, markers on the path that tell you you're moving in the right direction. The first sign is a change in your inner dialogue. The loud, frantic voice of the guilt complex begins to lose its volume. In its place, a quieter, kinder voice emerges. It's the voice of the self. Where you once heard, "You have to call them, they might be hurting," you now hear, "Your peace is precious, protected." Where you heard, "You are being selfish," you now hear, "It is wise to tend to your own needs." This is the voice of your own inner parent, finally showing up for you. The second sign often appears in your dreams. The unconscious communicates in symbols. You might notice your dreamscapes changing, the recurring nightmares of being trapped in a collapsing house, of screaming with no sound coming out, or of being endlessly chased begin to fade. They may be replaced by new dreams, dreams of finding new rooms in your house, of flying, of speaking a foreign language fluently, or simply of being in a peaceful, sunlit field. Your psyche is sending you postcards from your own liberation. The third sign is the return of your own feelings. For so long, your emotional landscape was a mirror of theirs. Now, you begin to experience emotional granularity. It's not just the dull, constant hum of anxiety anymore. You might feel a pang of genuine grief for the good times, and you can hold it without letting it trick you into going back. You might feel a flicker of spontaneous joy looking at a sunset, a feeling that is entirely your own. You are no longer just a reactor. You are a creator of your own emotional experience. But perhaps the most powerful test comes not from within, but from without. It arrives late in the process, long after you think the war is over. Months have passed. The silence has become your normal. The guilt is a faint, distant echo. You feel more stable, more centered than you have in years. And then, your phone lights up. It is them. But the message is not what you'd expect. It's not angry or pleading. It is a masterpiece of manipulation, a sophisticated Hoover designed to bypass all your new defenses. It might read, "I know it's been a while. I've been doing a lot of work on myself, and I realize how much my behavior hurt you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I would like the chance to apologize properly, so you can have the closure you deserve." The old you, the persona of the good person, would have felt a jolt of electrifying hope. They've changed. They see it now. This is the moment I've been waiting for. Closure. The urge to respond, to be gracious, to finally have your pain acknowledged would be overwhelming. But the new you, the integrated you, pauses. You feel the pull, the familiar tug of the old dynamic, But you are no longer the hook, you are the ocean. You observe the lure as it sinks through the water, and you recognize it for what it is. You check in with your body. Does your chest tighten? Does your stomach clench? Does the air suddenly feel thin? Your body remembers the truth, even when your mind is tempted by a beautiful lie. You realize the profound truth. Your closure did not depend on their apology. Your closure happened the moment you chose silence. Your closure was an inside job. And so, your response is one of quiet, sovereign power. You might not respond at all, letting the message sit there, a testament to your unbreakable peace. Or you may type a simple, dispassionate reply, "I wish you well." And then, without ceremony, you block the number. Not out of anger, but out of a deep and abiding loyalty to yourself. You have passed the final test. You have proven to yourself that your safety is more important than their redemption narrative. This journey of silence is also a journey of grief. As the peace settles in, you may find that it is tinged with a quiet sadness. You are mourning. You are mourning the person you thought they were. You are mourning the future you built in your mind. And most importantly, you are mourning the version of yourself you had to be to survive in that dynamic. The years you lost to anxiety, the energy you gave away, the dreams you put on hold. Let this grief come. It is not a sign of weakness or a desire to go back. It is the rain that washes the landscape clean, allowing new things to grow. This newfound solitude is not loneliness, it is sovereignty. It is the sacred, quiet space where you are finally, truly, meeting yourself for the first time. The silence is the greatest kindness you will ever show yourself. It is not an act of hate, but the ultimate act of self-love. It is the boundary that allows your heart not to harden, but to finally become safe enough to be soft again. The person who emerges from this stillness is not colder, they are whole. My silence is not a weapon, it is my sanctuary. It is the quiet, resolute stillness where I finally heard my own soul. And I realized it was there all along, waiting patiently for me to come home.